Is Your Majesty willing to take the oath?
I am willing.
Elizabeth II's oath on the day of her coronation was to govern the people of her realm.
The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Canada, Australia.
The monarch's place delicate in a constantly evolving Canada. The weight of that moment more than the heft of that crown. Few understand the role better than Canada's Governors General.
The Crown is very important to Canada, and I differentiate the Crown from the Queen. The Queen is the physical, living embodiment of the Crown at the moment. But the Crown in Canada is the symbol of all legitimacy, and the Governor General represents the Crown in Canada.
So some people imagine that because, by definition, the Governor General represents the Queen, that we take instructions from the Queen. It doesn't work that way.
We're completely independent. We don't owe anything, pay anything, do anything to Britain. We have this basis, like roots of the Magna Carta and the parliamentary system. And we grew out of that another kind of tree.
The Governor General is unelected but undeniably critical to Canada's parliamentary democracy. Commander-in-Chief, signing bills into law, representing Canada overseas, and representing the Queen in Canada. In this system, with the Queen at the top, it can mean a professional and personal rapport with the most famous person in the world.
It was a wonderful day. I think one of my best days since I became a human on this earth. It was very heartwarming, and she was very welcoming. She made me a cup of tea and then invited us to the table.
We were invited to be there in the summer in August, and they spend August at Balmoral Castle.
Well, we arrived, I think it was about 11 o'clock, and very quickly we were going for a walk before lunch. So I'm in these high heels, and I can tell you, Prince Philip, when he looked at me, was with very much a questioning glance. Why on earth would this woman be in a garden walking in shoes like that? Well, I had no other shoes. He must have spoken to the Queen, because the next morning she said, "Would you really like to see the horses?" And I said, "I really would." And she said, "Well, you'll have to have suitable shoes." And these were the suitable shoes. She handed them to me.
So you walked in the Queen's shoes for the rest of the weekend?
I walked in the Queen's shoes.
She said to me as we were leaving, "I do read letters, you know." And I said, "Well, Your Majesty, I will write to you, and when they get dull and boring, you let me know and I'll cease and desist." So I follow the custom of writing a letter about once a quarter, and I continue it on a less frequent basis today.
The Prime Minister of Canada, Your Majesty.
Justin Trudeau has a long history with the Queen.
Nice to see you again.
Pleasure to see you as well.
There are all the different sessions this
Yes.
year, isn't it?
I will say you were much taller than me the last time we met.
He first met her when his father was the Prime Minister. There aren't too many kids who have had to rush home because the Queen is coming for lunch.
I had outgrown all my dress shoes, and all I had was a clean pair of running shoes. I was under strict instructions to keep them clean that morning. Of course, I ended up playing in the mud in the morning. And then when I got home for lunch to meet her, she never noticed the shoes. The shoes were fine, I'm sure. She was lovely, and you could tell there was an actual genuine interest and connection with even the 7-year-old she was talking to.
Decades later, when he became Prime Minister, he took his own kids to meet her.
My daughter says, "Well, should I bow?" I'm like, "I don't know. Just be polite and be nice and thoughtful, and that'll be fine." We had 2 of our kids with us, Ella and Adrienne, who was really little at that point. We were worried because he was getting into one of the old snuff boxes or something on the knickknacks on a little side table. And we were like, no, you have to be really careful. And she was like, "Look, I'm a grandmother. We got kids in here all the time. Don't worry too much about it."
Even the brief encounters can lead to stories for a lifetime.
I had won the Commonwealth Writers' Prize, and the Queen likes to meet the winner.
Canadian author Lawrence Hill, who wrote the Book of Negroes, got an invitation to the palace he could not resist.
Happy day. See you shortly. I told my mother that I'd been invited to meet the Queen, and my mother said, "Don't go. don't waste your time. You know, being an American, she was sort of an anti-royal, didn't like the idea of monarchy one bit. And I said, Mom, come on, like, I'm not going to turn down the Queen.
Mr. Hill and Dr. Collins, Your Majesty.
She began by saying, I'm sorry, I haven't had time to read your book. And could you please tell me something about this Book of Negroes?
You're the winner this year.
I am. So here I was, you know, a kid raised in Don Mills, Ontario, telling the Queen something about British history. She also had a button on a little table to her right, and I was told that when she'd had enough of me, her hand would migrate to this button and tap it, at which point, you know, 6'5" security guards would step into the room and escort me out promptly. So I tried to be more interesting and tell her a few more stories, and she did withdraw her hand a few times until it went down emphatically, and out I went.
Here in London, there are moments held in memories and more kept in cold storage. Hard to imagine a more chronicled life. Wherever there was a camera, there's now a photograph. Many are right here, the archives of Getty Images.
This place is incredibly important. Over 135 million images in one place. It's an incredible collection of historic images and images of the royal family. Visiting Canada with the Queen was hugely exciting. You're creating an archive of so many different facets of her life, from those family moments to the royal tours, to the pomp and the ceremony which makes the royal family the royal family. So there's a relaxed atmosphere. Certainly when the royals get the opportunity to get out and about, it's something that really sticks in the memory.
Each time I come, I have only to look out of the aircraft window, to be struck again by the sheer size of Canada, its beauty, and huge wealth of natural resources. Then there are the people of Canada. Here is the country's greatest resource.
World tours of Canada are vitally important to this nation, to our people, to the citizens of Canada. It brings them into close contact with the institution that is there to protect their very rights and freedoms. It is not a piece of paper, it's a living, breathing person.
When there are royal tours, we pay for the plane that brings the royal tour here. We pay for everything of all the royal tours. It's a nice channeling of the longing that people seem to have for celebrity. If it's all People magazine and Hello and Vanity Fair, that's fine, leave it like that.
Elvira Dulich's celebrity encounter came while working at Research in Motion, maker of BlackBerry, in 2010.
I was a little bit nervous. Obviously, it's not every day you get to meet the Queen of England.
One of many government tours on the royal schedule, presumably pretty predictable for the Queen, not for those who meet her.
They had told us ahead of time that she was going to be doing a tour, and then they said whoever's sitting at this station is going to have to speak with her. So all the other ladies were like, no. And then I was like, oh, I'll do it. So the director was the one that told her, well, get Elvira to give you the phone, and then you can press the very last button. So she did that, and the phone vibrated, and it startled her, and she went, oh my! And I think that's one of the most famous pictures that was circulated around.
The Queen has this incredible presence, she has an aura, it's the effect she has on the people around her. She realises how special it is for people every day meeting her. It's one of the moments in their life they will remember forever, and for her it's just another day in the office.
That just another day at the office in 1987 was a stop at a cattle farm in Kindersley, Saskatchewan, 2 hours outside of Saskatoon.
This is the hat I wore the day the Queen come here. It's been kind of a keepsake. I wear it once in a while, but not too often anymore. It's maybe out of style, but it was okay the day the Queen came here.
She was kind of impressed, and she seemed to be very interested in the cattle themselves.
It was Grant Rennie's family farm the Queen and Prince Philip rolled up in the dust to see.
He made the farm a historic place, you could say. Not many people have the honor of even meeting the Queen, let alone her coming right to your place of residence. She liked the landscape of the country here, the open spaces, I guess you could call it. She went in the pens and wanted to touch the cattle there, or even get right close to them. In fact, one did come up and almost sniff her hand, and she wasn't worried about it at all. Yeah.
My name is Margaret Elizabeth. Can you believe that? I'm named after the two princesses.
Margaret Southern helped found Spruce Meadows in Calgary. Like the Queen, she adores horses. Part of why she was chosen to be the Queen's lady-in-waiting for 10 days in 1990.
The lady-in-waiting is a very simple job. As soon as someone gives her the flowers, the lady-in-waiting is to take those flowers and hold them until after the event you're in. Sometimes I looked like I was a bride because I was just covered with flowers.
They ate together, rode in the same car from event to event. Margaret Southern picking up quickly on the rhythms of a royal tour, but still astonished by a single act of grace.
Wherever you traveled, there was always a little girl that would present a bouquet of flowers to Her Majesty. And at Spruce Meadows, I had a little granddaughter that was just 5, and she had a brother that was just 4 years old, and Kyle couldn't walk. He was born with cerebral palsy, and at that time he couldn't walk. He would keep stealing flowers out of the top of Kelly's bouquet of flowers. And when Her Majesty came and said, "Here, Queenie, here, Queenie," Her Majesty took the flowers. She kept those flowers almost all day long. At the end of the day, I said to Her Majesty, "Why did you keep those flowers? I was quite prepared to take them from you." And she said, "Because that little boy gave me them, and I thought I might see him later on, and I wouldn't have the flowers in my hand, and he would think, why wouldn't the Queen keep my flowers?"
Between the flowers and formalities over nearly 24 trips, there's been the business of government to attend to. The Queen at home in Canada for centennial celebrations.
Happy birthday to Canada!
And the signing of the Constitution.
It is 1982, and on Parliament Hill, Queen Elizabeth signs the Constitution Act. Seated beside you was my father. Pierre Elliott Trudeau was your 4th Canadian Prime Minister. I am your 12th.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister of Canada, for making me feel so old.
There is something about her grace, her attentiveness, her engagement, her personal connections that puts me and puts all of us extraordinarily at ease when we're sitting and talking with her.
12 prime ministers in 7 decades, some maintaining connections long after they were out of the job.
Last time I met Prince Philip, he was probably at that time about 95 or something like that. And he said to me, "Do you come to London with him?" I said, "Yes, why don't you call me? You are the only one guy that I'm talking with since 1967 and is still alive."
Decades before he became Canada's 20th Prime Minister, young Jean Chrétien, the cabinet minister, started meeting the Queen and her family when they toured Canada, most memorably when they all went north.
I had the privilege with Aline to be with them and Prince Charles and Princess Anne 4 days in the Northwest Territories in 1970.
C'est très agréable qu'elle fait toujours le point de parler en français avec moi.
I had met the royal family 5 times in a year and a half. It's a lot for a French Canadian. So I said, "I am the royalist from Quebec, Your Majesty." And she would laugh.
That close connection was perfect bait for a comedian during the stressful days of the Quebec referendum.
Your Majesty, I'm really stressed out of these days.
I'm sure you are.
Yes.
We've been following it with great interest.
One day, some comedian in Quebec had called her, faking that I was the one on the line.
The Canadian political situation is very critical.
Yes. I mean, if I can help, I would be delighted to do anything I can.
Yes.
Do you think you could give me a text of what you'd like me to say?
Sure, sure.
And poor Majesty, she didn't know how to handle that. I said, I'm sorry, you must have been surprised. She said, of course I've been very surprised. I thought that you were drunk.
Through Canada's biggest moments, a friendship formed.
She will remain the monarch until the last day, I'm sure. She's the Queen of Canada.